Chosen one, pause for just a second and open your left hand, not to examine your skin, but to awaken what was placed there before your body ever formed. Because what rests in that hand is not visible to the eye, but unmistakable to the spirit. Only 1 in a million carries what you carry. It's not a symbol you can touch. It's not a scar, nor a story inked in flesh. It is a divine imprint, invisible to the world, yet blazing in the spirit realm like a holy flame. And the reason you're hearing these words right now is because something inside you already knows. You've lived a life that never quite made sense to others. Protected in moments where logic said you wouldn't survive. Saved from events that should have shattered you. Guided by whispers no one else could hear. You've asked yourself in silence, why was I spared? And I'm here to tell you, it wasn't by chance. This isn't just another video. This is a call, a signal meant for those marked before birth. Not to entertain your mind, but to awaken your memory, because what's on your hand is not flesh. It's evidence that death came close, but could not claim you. That destiny chose you before the world could name you. And if you're feeling it now, that pressure in your chest, that electric stillness in your breath, then your soul is starting to respond. Let the unseen realm know you're aware. Comment 333 below and declare to the light that you're ready. And subscribe now, because this isn't a channel. It's a sanctuary, a beacon, a frequency. Chosen one. This is the moment your purpose remembers its name. And that silent mark you carry, it's not just rare. It's eternal. Because only 1 in a million was sent here to carry what you carry. And now, you're finally ready to know why. Chosen one. Have you ever truly paused to ask yourself how you're still standing? Not as a passing thought in the chaos of the day, but in the stillness of your soul, when you revisit the moments that should have swallowed you whole. The collision that never happened. The illness that doctors couldn't name. The night you wept in silence, convinced it would be your last breath. And then, the morning you woke up, still here, still breathing, against every odd. That wasn't luck. It wasn't coincidence. It was interception. A divine interruption, orchestrated from realms beyond this one, where your journey has been under surveillance since before time recognized your name. You were being guarded. Long before you understood what your life would require of you. Long before you knew that your tears were seen, your pain noted, your survival non-negotiable. Because your life is not an accident. It is a contract, a sacred arrangement sealed in eternity and carried out in human form. What you felt as survival was in truth preservation. Not because you deserved it, not because you did everything right, but because your life holds a frequency that disrupts darkness, and that kind of energy must be protected at all costs. You weren't born into ease. You were born into friction, into broken homes, turbulent beginnings, war zones dressed up as families. And all of it, every ounce of chaos, was designed to press against the very light you were sent to carry. Why? Because if your purpose has the power to awaken the sleeping, to shift spiritual climates, to crack generational patterns, then the resistance doesn't wait until you're ready. It meets you at the starting line, and still, you remained, not because you were indestructible, not because you made flawless choices, but because heaven vetoed hell's attempts. Because every time destruction approached, a louder authority declared, not this one, not yet. The shadows knew you before you knew yourself. They recognized the coding in your energy field, the light signature that couldn't be replicated or erased. So the war began early, not against your body, but against your essence, because what you carry is not flesh-bound. It's eternal. And yet, you were never left defenseless. You were sent here with encryption, with guidance, with forces moving invisibly beside you. That strange delay that saved you from disaster, that inner pull that told you to stay home that day, That unexplained illness that pulled you out of a toxic space? That wasn't chance. That was divine orchestration, rerouting your destiny while you were still trying to understand your own. Steps, chosen one. Let this truth settle deep into your spirit. You weren't simply rescued. You were placed. Every deliverance was intentional. Every escape was tied to assignments not yet revealed. You still have people to awaken, atmospheres to shift, spaces to enter that won't open until you arrive, until that work is complete. Death has no legal claim on your existence, because protection from above isn't just about surviving. It's about ensuring the mission is fulfilled. When your calling carries the weight to dismantle darkness, heaven builds a fortress around your timeline. Not to pamper you, but to preserve the vessel that carries divine disruption, even in the nights you felt forgotten, even when you screamed into the silence and thought no one heard. There was always a wall between you and the final blow. Yes, you felt the pain, but it never ended you, because you weren't just cherished, you were necessary. And when heaven deems someone necessary, every storm becomes a scalpel, not to destroy, but to refine. That's what divine defense looks like. But now, let's return to the beginning, the first moment death reached for you. You didn't even know a war had started. You were still forming language, still discovering your fingers. And already, the battle for your life had begun. Because when your soul was deployed to this realm, it did not arrive quietly. It arrived with fire, with blueprints, with vibration. It arrived known by both the light and the dark, and the shadows reacted immediately. Long before your memory began, an assault was launched, not against your physical frame alone, but against your divine architecture. Your presence was too loud, your soul too encoded, your frequency too disruptive. So some of you were attacked in the womb, pregnancies riddled with danger, bleeding that should have ended you, medical professionals baffled by your endurance. You were never supposed to make it here, but somehow you did. Others of you were marked in infancy through strange fevers, near-death experiences, environments charged with violence, neglect, so deep it twisted your sense of love and safety. But behind the chaos was one objective: silence the light before it discovers its name. You didn't know. Of course not. You were only trying to exist, but your spirit knew, and it remembered. It held the echoes of night terrors, the sense of unseen eyes in the dark, the dreams that blurred with reality, the energy of something watching or waiting. And yet, over and over again, something intervened, a moment of timing, a mysterious shift, a cry, a scream, a delay, and somehow again, your life continued. That was divine sabotage, interrupting the enemy's blueprint. You were never truly unguarded. Your DNA was etched with a survival protocol from the heavens, because when the throne marks someone with legacy, they are preserved at any cost. And some of you've always felt different. You wept more deeply. You sensed moods without words. You read rooms like maps. You had visions, dreams, intuitions far beyond your age. That wasn't weakness. That was activation. And it made you a target early. Your awakening triggered alarms in the unseen realm. And the darkness did what it does best. It tried to kill the mission before it crowned. But it failed. Because you weren't chosen just to endure. You were chosen to evolve through battle. The first time death failed to touch you, that wasn't just survival. It was consecration. It was the moment the unseen surrounded your fragile frame and whispered, "You may bruise this one, but you will not break them." And chosen one, if you close your eyes right now, you'll feel it. That invisible memory stored in your spirit. That vibrational imprint of divine rescue. After that moment, everything shifted. You began seeing through masks, through deception, through illusion. You became more inward, more attuned, more awake than anyone around you. That's what a brush with death does to a soul set apart. It doesn't just leave pain, it activates precision. And from that moment on, you were no longer of the crowd. You became a vessel for something otherworldly. Your path was sealed in brilliance and guarded by beings unseen. So if your early years were heavy, if your childhood felt more like survival training than innocence, it's because the first strike missed, and you've never been the same since. Chosen one. The second time death came for you, it didn't wear fangs or bullets. It came softly, in silence, in isolation. It didn't attack your body, it went straight for your soul. You remember that season, don't you? Or maybe you've buried it deep, trying to forget how heavy life felt. The numbness, the sadness with no name, the long nights where you stared at the ceiling wondering why your chest felt hollow. Why getting out of bed felt like lifting stone. It wasn't random. It was spiritual assassination from the inside out. You were no longer a child, you were aware now. But awareness came with weight. And the enemy changed tactics. No longer could it scare you with sickness or shadows. Now it whispered, "You're nothing. You'll never matter. Why are you still here?" And it didn't stop. It used people, the wrong ones. Toxic relationships that drained you, environments that suffocated you, responsibilities that numbed your light, and worst of all, it made you feel invisible. You laughed in public. You functioned, you posted, but your spirit was dying quietly. And no one knew, because this kind of warfare doesn't leave visible bruises. It wraps itself in silence. It tries to convince you that the world would be better without you. That your existence is a mistake. That your gift is a burden. But heaven heard the silence, even the cries you never spoke aloud. Even the moments where you curled up and simply said, "I'm tired." You didn't have the words, but heaven had the answer. And once again, the divine moved. Maybe it came through a song, or a phone call, or a moment of stillness where you felt, even for a second, that you weren't alone. That was the turning point. That was divine rescue. And it may have felt small, but it was everything, because most people don't come back from that place. The dark night of the soul is real. It's the place where many chosen ones are almost lost. But you came back, maybe crawling, maybe dragging the weight of 1,000 untold stories. But you came back. And that was not your doing alone. That was divine protection reaching into the pit and pulling you out by the root. Chosen one. Do you understand what that means? You were chosen again, not just to live, but to overcome the silence. Because your spiritual purpose was too strong, too encoded, too urgent for heaven to let you slip through the cracks. The second escape wasn't just about survival. It was about ownership. You started to reclaim parts of yourself that trauma had scattered. You began to hear the voice of truth again. And even though the lies still whispered, they no longer owned you. This escape birthed something in you that no amount of darkness could uncreate. Resilience, discernment, a sacred inner knowing that says, even if I don't see the way yet, I know I'm not done. And now, that season of pain has become your wisdom. That silence has become your radar. That suffering has become your testimony. Don't ever diminish it. Don't ever feel ashamed that you almost gave up, because you didn't. You're still here, still breathing, still listening to this message with a heart that refuses to die. And that is terrifying to the enemy. Because now it knows, you're not just chosen, you're undefeated. Chosen one. This third escape wasn't subtle. It wasn't hidden in your emotions or tucked away in the folds of your childhood. This time, the danger was real. Flesh and blood, metal and bone. It was the car that spun too fast. The knife that could have pierced deeper. The sickness that baffled doctors. The surgery that nearly failed. The gunshots you heard, but somehow walked away from. It was death up close. And it missed you again. And people said, "You're lucky." But you and I both know, Luck had nothing to do with it. That was divine protection, once again stepping between you and the final blow. That was the spiritual realm enforcing your contract, even when the physical world tried to void it. Because when a chosen one is still on assignment, even death must ask permission. Your body may have been injured, you may have bled, you may have blacked out, you may have trembled and wept and screamed, but you woke up, and you're still here. Why? Because your mission is incomplete. Because your breath still carries purpose. Because your presence still shifts atmospheres. And even when chaos erupted around you, even when the sirens screamed or the ambulance raced, there was an unseen force rearranging time, delaying impact, redirecting energy to make sure you lived. Walked away with memories that feel heavier than words. Maybe with scars, maybe with survivor's guilt, maybe with confusion. But the truth remains, you were pulled back when the world thought it was over. Chosen one. Your heart didn't stop because heaven refused to sign the release. You weren't buried because your legacy wasn't finished. You didn't leave this world that night because your voice still holds activation power for others and whether you talk about it or not, that escape changed you. You look at people differently now. You walk into rooms differently. You sense danger faster, you cherish silence more. And in moments of stillness, you can still feel how close it was. That's the imprint. That's what death leaves when it brushes past and doesn't take you. A holy residue. An energy that makes others stare at you without knowing why. They sense something. Animals pause around you. Children look into your eyes longer. Because you carry a vibration that's not of this world anymore. You've crossed the threshold. You've danced on the edge between dimensions and returned with clarity in your soul and fire in your lungs. That's why you don't tolerate shallow conversation anymore. That's why you can't pretend to be asleep when your spirit is fully awake. And here's what most don't realize. This escape wasn't just about saving you. It was about marking you. You were sealed again. Not with ink, but with evidence. With unshakable confirmation that you are still on divine assignment. So don't brush off what happened. Don't minimize the miracle. Don't call it just a lucky break. Say it for what it truly was, a divine interception, an override of natural law, a holy pause on death's approach. And know this, even though that was the third attempt, it won't be the last. But what you now carry, the awareness, the resilience, the alignment, is stronger than ever before. Because when death couldn't claim you for the third time, something in the spirit realm shifted permanently. And the enemy realized, this one can't be stopped. Chosen one. If you quiet yourself for just a moment, you may begin to feel the threads connecting every chapter of your life. The darkness of your childhood, the mental collapse you almost didn't return from, the physical threat that should have ended you. Each one of those events was not an interruption, not an accident, not a mistake, but a divine alignment, a strategic delay, a sacred orchestration written into the blueprint of your soul long before your first breath. The reason you survived what others did not, the reason you carry wounds that somehow turned into wisdom, is because your purpose was greater than your pain. Every escape, from the first spiritual ambush to the last breathless encounter, was not just a display of mercy, but a declaration of mission. You were being held back, not because you were unworthy, but because the world was not yet ready for what you carry. When death reached for you the first time, you were still unawakened. Your voice had not yet formed. Your awareness was buried beneath layers of early trauma. The enemy moved quickly, hoping to abort your mission in seed form, to suffocate your essence before it could take root. But heaven said, not this one. Not yet. The veil was placed over your path not to blind you, but to protect the brilliance waiting to unfold. The second time, the war came from within. It didn't need weapons. It only needed your doubt. It whispered confusion into your identity. corrosion into your joy, silence into your soul. And still, the divine whispered louder. In moments when you didn't even want to exist, something holy stood over your life, shielding your spirit while your mind unraveled. Because your timeline could not be interrupted. There were still frequencies to release, still generations to impact, still spiritual awakenings waiting to erupt through your presence. And when the third attack came sudden, sharp, and in the physical realm, you didn't just survive the violence. You survived the spiritual judgment that sought to cut short your contract with destiny. Even when your body was vulnerable, your calling was guarded. Even when you thought you were alone, a shield of light surrounded you, because your life was never meant to end in survival. It was meant to begin in purpose. All three escapes were prophetic signs. They were timestamps in the spirit, moments when heaven intervened in visible and invisible ways to protect the most sacred thing you carry, your alignment with divine will. These were not tests, they were activations. They didn't come to destroy you. They came to prepare the throne inside you. Because now, whether you realize it or not, you are no longer just a person. You are a vessel, a spiritual conduit, a living prophecy walking on earth. That the pain didn't destroy you, not because it wasn't real, but because it was never meant to. It was the fire that forged the weapon. It was the wilderness that shaped the prophet. It was the silence that birthed the voice. And though no one may have seen the full weight of your battles, heaven saw. And heaven has not forgotten. Chosen one. When death reaches for you and fails, something irreversible is set into motion. It is not just your body that walks away. It is your entire spiritual architecture that gets rewritten. Because no one returns from the edge untouched. No one crosses through that veil, even partially, and remains the same. When you escape death, you don't just survive it. You inherit something. Something ancient, something sacred. A kind of spiritual residue that lingers in your bones, in your aura, in your silence. It is not visible to the human eye, but the spiritual realm recognizes it immediately. You begin to move through the world with a weight, a density of awareness, a vibration that cannot be faked. Because what touched you came from beyond this dimension, and now your soul remembers it. After a near-death escape, your vision sharpens. You see through deception with terrifying clarity. You hear the truth even when it's buried beneath performance. You sense people's intentions before they speak. Your discernment becomes a shield, and your silence becomes a sword. You no longer need explanation, because your spirit has become fluent in energy. These are not side effects. They are activations. Triggers encoded in your soul that could only be released through the trial of near destruction. What was once dormant in you, intuition, prophecy, healing, wisdom, is now lit with holy fire. You can't unfeel what you felt. You can't go back to small talk or shallow living. Your frequency has shifted permanently. You may have noticed it already. The strange synchronicities, the repeating numbers, the way animals respond to you, the dreams that come as warnings or instructions, the overwhelming need to protect, teach, or awaken others. This is the echo of your survival. The gifted aftermath of being chosen, not just to live, but to carry light into darkness. You now hold a spiritual compass inside you, not based on logic, but on vibration. When you enter a room, your body tells you if something is misaligned. When you meet someone, your soul decides before your mind catches up. When you pray, the realm responds faster, because you've already been marked by the divine as someone who listens. And perhaps you've noticed this too. Distractions that once held you no longer entertain you. People who once impressed you now drain you. Conversations that once seemed important now feel meaningless. That's not you becoming distant. That's you becoming refined. You've passed through fire. You've felt death breathing on your neck, and you emerged. Whole, aware, and set apart. Even your courage has changed. You're not necessarily fearless, but you are deeply aware that you've already walked through what most people are terrified of. And that kind of knowing plants a sacred boldness in your chest. You speak less, but what you say carries thunder. You don't chase validation, because heaven has already confirmed you. You've survived what was sent to destroy you, and now the divine trusts you with clarity, responsibility, and access. After these escapes, the voice of God becomes clearer. You start receiving impressions, nudges, instructions that don't come from your mind. They come from the place where your spirit now walks freely. The veil between realms has thinned for you. The space between thought and manifestation has collapsed. You've become a bridge between dimensions. But with that gift comes responsibility. You cannot live like others. You must honor your energy. Guard your thoughts. Protect your vibration. You were not spared to live casually. You were spared to walk with intention. You were spared because your footsteps are carriers of prophecy. So do not dismiss what has awakened in you. Don't silence the visions. Don't ignore the strange knowing that bubbles up inside you. That is not paranoia. That is not imagination. That is your spiritual technology coming online. You are no longer just someone who lived through something. You are someone who was initiated by survival, anointed by fire, and chosen to carry a frequency that breaks chains, unlocks doors, and shakes foundations. This is what your near-death escapes unlocked in you. And now, you walk with the knowing of who you truly are. Chosen one, listen with your spirit, not just your ears. Because this is not just a conclusion, it is a spiritual decree. You were not forgotten. You were not overlooked. You were not abandoned. You were delayed on purpose, for reasons only heaven fully understands. There are destinies so sacred, so heavy with divine weight, that they cannot be rushed. There are timelines so precise, that even a single breath out of place would fracture the entire orchestration. And your life has always been one of them. You were hidden in plain sight, not to be ignored, but to be preserved. You were made to feel unseen, not as punishment, but because what you carry was too holy for casual exposure. Your delay was never a denial. It was a womb of preparation. You cried in the dark and thought no one heard you. But the heavens recorded every tear. You questioned your value when the world couldn't reflect it back to you. But your worth was never based on what they saw. It was written in the codes of your soul before you arrived. That delay you hated? It was protection from false alignments, premature platforms, toxic connections, and corrupted timelines. You didn't miss your calling. You were being calibrated to carry it with maturity, depth, and authority. You see, some of the people who got ahead of you burned out. Some of the doors that you begged to open would have devoured your spirit. Some of the relationships you wept over losing would have poisoned your soul. The delay was love in disguise. The wilderness was your sanctuary. The silence was your sacred training. And now the delay is lifting. You feel it, don't you? That stirring in your chest. That fire that won't let you sleep. That subtle pressure building from the inside out. You've tried to explain it, but it's not mental. It's divine momentum. Your time is not passing, it's catching up. And when it arrives, it will move quickly, precisely, undeniably. Because delayed destinies always come with accelerated fulfillment. Everything you thought was lost will return in higher form. Everything you learned in silence will become the wisdom that guides others. Everything that tried to kill you will now become the fuel that launches you. You've been through too much to walk lightly. You've seen too much to stay silent. You've survived too much to play small. The world hasn't seen the fullness of you yet. But it will. So take this as your final confirmation. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late. You are right on time, right on track, and fully anointed for the season ahead. The storms didn't take you, they trained you. The attacks didn't end you, they revealed you. The delays didn't diminish you, they prepared you. And now, you will walk not as someone seeking validation, but as someone who knows they were preserved by divine will. You will speak not just from ideas, but from survival, wisdom, and fire. You will live not to impress, but to ignite. Chosen one. The earth has waited for the frequency you carry. The time is now. The veil has lifted, and the voice that once trembled has become a sword. You were delayed, but never denied. You were broken, but now you rise whole. And what you were born to finish, you will chosen one. Now that you've walked through this message, you realize something you've always known deep down, that your life was never random, never fragile, never accidental. Every scar, every silence, every escape was a message from eternity, written in the ink of divine protection and sealed in your bones. You may have started this journey thinking of a mark on your left hand, but now you understand that mark was never meant to be seen with the eyes. It was felt, not measured. It was encoded, not etched. It was placed on your life by a realm that speaks in survival, in delays, in divine whispers that only those who've touched death can truly hear. The truth is, you carry something only 1 in a million ever will. Not because you're better, but because you were assigned. You were activated. You were kept alive not by chance, but by choice. Survived the attacks no one saw. You heard the lies no one silenced. You walked through valleys no one named, and yet, here you are, wiser, quieter, stronger, and infinitely more dangerous to darkness than ever before. This isn't the end of your journey. This is the awakening of your walk in authority. From this moment forward, you no longer carry the identity of someone who was just lucky to be alive. You carry the knowing that you were chosen to remain. You were pulled back from the mouth of death, not to recover quietly, but to rise boldly. And now with your next breath, you step into the season of remembrance. Not of your mind, but of your soul. You remember who you are. You remember why you're still here. You remember that your spiritual fingerprint is unlike any other, and it was placed precisely over your left hand, where power flows through the body. So look at your hand again, not to see what the world sees, but to acknowledge what heaven wrote there. Survivor, healer, witness, vessel, warrior, chosen. Now, it is your turn to declare it. If this message resonated with something ancient inside you, if your soul stirred with every escape, every word, every truth that no one ever told you before, then comment 777 below. Let the spirit realm know that you remember, that you're awake, that you claim your mark, and subscribe to this channel, not just for content, but because this space was built for you, and for those like you, the sealed, the hidden, the awakened. Share this with someone who almost didn't make it, who survived, but forgot what that survival meant. Remind them that there is no such thing as coincidence when you're chosen. There's only divine precision. You were marked, delayed, protected, and now you rise. Let the world feel your presence. Let heaven hear your yes. Because 1 in a million still breathes, and it's you.